Greg and Kathy Farrington watch over Destiny Church here in Rockland. Hi, Greg. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for making some time for me. That first question for you. Today in your sermon, you talked about convergence. What do you mean by that?
Well, you get two bodies of water coming together and it creates a swirling. Right now, we have culture moving in one direction. It's a very strong current. But there is a move of God. The church is rising up in this moment, and it's converging at this intersection. And there's a swirling right now. Whatever current is the most strongest will be the predominant flow of that river.
And that's got to put the church in an interesting place. Where's the heart of the congregation right now? As you talk to people here at Destiny, what are you hearing?
They are ready to go. I mean, they are warriors. They are ready to be in the army. They are so excited that the church is open. They really don't care about our protocols, even though we've had them do protocols, but they are ready to go. There's no fear. They are ready to march, shout, do whatever we could. They'll follow us. Whatever mountain we're going to go to, they're going to follow.
Now, the congregation here has offered a lot of different ways for people to connect. They can connect online. They can be in the auditorium in person. You even had outdoor services for a while. It's obvious you're doing everything you can to try to meet the needs of people where they are and where their concerns are and their fears are. Describe how that plays out day to day as you make decisions, as you lead this congregation.
Yeah, we recognize that people are in different places, okay? So there are people who are compromised as far as the immune system. And we don't want them to come to church. We do not want them to be here. It's their own personal choice whether they come or not. And when we had our outside venue, sometimes that would work. But as you can tell with the fires here in Sacramento, it's not a long-term solution to be outside.
Yeah.
So we have a huge room that we use for social distancing. We create some space in our sanctuary. So everybody gets to choose. And then people can be online. But I have been a proponent from the very beginning that the church must get back into church, to open the doors. We don't even know the devastating effects that is going to happen to churches when they emerge. We've been doing this now for 16 weeks. I think Barnum said that 33% of the people who attended church pre-COVID will not come back.
Wow.
And so churches, congregation, pastors are going to be shocked. So we intentionally pushed hard and tell people to come to church.
And in your sermon this morning, you used the phrase resetting the church. Unpack that a bit for me.
I believe that this is a moment in time. If we just say, oh, we opened our doors, we're back, I think we miss the spiritual moment that we are in. God is using this moment to reset the church. If we go back to normal, quote unquote normal, it's finished, it's done, it's over. Because we all know we lost a lot of ground over the last 20, 30 years. We have to have radical revolutionaries stand up and be counted in this moment, revivalists who will say, let's use this moment for God's glory.
Kathy, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's exciting if you go outside before a service and you see that people had to go to the effort to make a reservation. When they get here, they have to stand in line. Yeah. They have to check in with someone. The effort that people have to go to come into the house of God.
You check their temperature.
Check their temperature. All that effort, check your children in, all that kind of stuff. People are willing to do it. We've done it for other things for decades, but they're willing to do it now for the church because they've sensed the urgency that church is they're trying to take church away from us. They're trying to take this gathering of the church, the ecclesia, away. And once they felt that threat, man, they have come out and they're willing to make an effort and not take it for granted.
That's a concern I've heard over and over again, that once government figures out it can shut churches down, tell you to stop singing, they're not going to give up that power. And it is a frightening thing to think the government would try to invade the sphere of the church because the family's next.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has got to be our Masada, where we say, never again. You are never going to do this again. We just have to take a stand. We can't back down. We have to be bold. There's got to be a lot of courage. And, it's going to take a remnant. It's not going to take a majority. It's going to take a remnant. God has always worked through a remnant. But people who are not afraid of what government says, pastors who are not afraid to be politically incorrect and call sin for what it is, sin, and not kind of couch it as it's comfortable for people. That's not going to cut it today.
Now, the government's pushing its power into what happens here inside your building. You went to the Capitol last weekend. You've got another meeting planned for October. Why are you taking it right to the steps of the Capitol? What's the message you want to take?
I think it's time for the church to be bold. I think it's time for our voices to be heard. We have been the silent majority. It is now time for us to become the loud majority. And so we're going to make statements like that. We're going to go with big volumes of people. But then it has to do, like I shared in my sermon today, Governor Newsom, and I respect the office of governor. He doesn't have to be our governor. 9 million Christians did not vote in 2018. He won by 3 million votes. It doesn't have to be this way. If the church will get loud, stand its ground, we can take this state and turn it red.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, the governor knew that we were out there worshiping, and the whole one of the agendas for being there is that spirit that was there worshiping would invade the Capitol building once those doors open up, because they have been shut down now, and I think it's till the new year. So
very interesting was we were headed down to the Capitol. I got a very threatening email. Almost called you guys. From an official. I'm not going to name the official, but very, very threatening, and trying to impose fear. The government is trying to impose fear upon the church that we will cower in this moment. And we read it together, and I said, "Isn't it interesting? The night that we are going to take a stand in front of the Capitol, this email comes."
And we pushed up against that, and the next day they totally backed off. Now, if we could have just said, we'll give you everything you're asking, but we didn't. And they totally backed off.
If you could spend a few minutes with the governor, what would you say? What would you like to tell him?
That church is essential. Every week, I just prayed with someone this week that they're going to court this week, and they've dealt with a ton of fear during this whole COVID season. And when it hit and they realized that they weren't going to be able to be with their church family or with pastors to encourage them, as this family is very broken and walking through this season, they didn't know if they could make it. So we continue to meet with them even during COVID. But we have widows. We have several families that have lost wives who have lost their husbands during COVID. What a lonely season. One woman didn't get to see her husband for 6 months, and he just passed away a few weeks ago.
Wow.
And they had to sneak her in after hours so she could even be with her husband. The last week he was alive, but she wasn't with him for 6 months. And we've seen single moms. We have a lot of single moms, and the burden of schooling and parenting and managing your home and not having their church family right there. My sister started a ministry just taking baskets to our widows, to our older people, to our police department, to those who are compromised and shut in. The isolation has its own devastating death rate. The isolation alone has its death rate. And the church, there's a physical health, but there's a mental and spiritual health. And if the mental and spiritual health of our families, of our community is not being met, that has its own death rate, and that's why the church is essential. The government might only be worrying about physical, but they need to be worried about spiritual and mental as well. And if they thought through those veins, they would open up things, because people's livelihoods, people's family health, all that matters.
Yeah. Greg, you look like you're thinking there. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that, sometimes we paint government as an adversary. And if I could talk to the governor, I would say, I'm not against you. I'm against your policies, because government does have a place, but a rightful place. Our Constitution gives us a right, freedom of worship. And so government should not meddle in that kind of stuff. It should let the church do what it does, and we do it well, and let government do what it does. They can work together. They don't have to work against each other.
All right. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.